Emily Abbott, thanks for joining me today.
Pine and Flag. It's so good to be here.
It's great to see you.
Uh-huh. I know
I,
it's
it's
been a while.
been a while. I was just reminiscing about how we first met. I'm not sure if you remember this story.
I don't. Well, I know it was at the CrossFit gym,
I can
but
jog your memory with one word:
okay.
backflip.
Wait, what?
You saw me do a backflip.
In the old gym in Curry Barracks?
Yeah. Well, I was trying to do a backflip.
What happened?
We bought these gymnastics mats because we wanted to start gymnastics training people. And the first day, I was like, I could probably do a backflip. So I set up a mat and then just tried a backflip and landed straight on my neck and almost paralyzed myself.
And that honestly, that I feel like that story encapsulates what CrossFit Curry Barracks was about because the amount of like near like life-threatening injuries I saw at that place. Not saying CrossFit in general and not saying this gym in general, but I think like guys at that time were just so reckless. Like so reckless.
That pretty much sums up my 20s right there. Just
Yeah.
trying to do things that I had no business doing and almost
Yeah.
breaking my neck.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what your 20s is about. It's really finding the barometer between extremes.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I mean,
So
I was CrossFitting and like doing insane things with my body at like a really high level. I can't believe half the stuff I did. I
So
was
we
like,
started coaching at the same time. At that time, you were just starting your competitive career, and there
yes.
was a pretty big fast track. Like I remember, you were like, "Oh yeah, I compete a little bit," and then within a year, you were qualifying for the games and going to the games.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, huh?
So, what were some highlights of that time in your life?
I think the highlight like was really tuning into my body and understanding how to make it run like this really finely tuned machine. And I didn't have a lot of body awareness before. Like I had been a collegiate basketball athlete, but I remember like trying to snatch for the first time, and I'm like, why the fuck would anybody do this, you know? And then yeah, dove head first into it and realized the potential in my body was ever expanding.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I would say that's the biggest takeaway.
So, when you were like to to let the audience know if they don't know, you were one of the best CrossFitters in the world for a couple of years.
Yeah, I think my best finish was eighth place in 2015. And
Hmm.
then I was top 20 for the most part at the CrossFit Games after that.
Hmm.
Um, and then I, my 2018 season, or was it 2017? I forget. I was like peaking as an athlete. I think I was around 29 and just at my absolute peak as an athlete. And yeah, that would have been a really interesting year,
Hmm. How
unfortunately.
how did your body feel when you were full time training? When you were at your peak, did you feel good mentally? Did you feel good physically, or were you kind of like worn down?
Oh, how I feel now compared to how I felt then. I mean, it was all part of the process of my journey. Um, but I think in the beginning, and this is, so true. This is the oldest story in the world. It's so fun to express yourself in that way. Um, I also think there's a dark side to it, a dark passenger that we all carry that push us into this sport. There's a lot of trauma there. A lot of people like running away from not wanting to feel. But that was our tool to maybe feel like we had some control in our life. Um, but I can remember near like probably the last year of CrossFit, the last year and a half, I was like, oh my God, like I feel so limited. I feel like I literally put myself in a box and was training there for 4 hours a day. And I knew that mentally, um, that there had to be like mentally, I knew that I was in it and that I was competing and that I could like work really hard. Emotionally, I was not well. I was very, uh, I felt like there's parts of myself that were not being expressed, but I had no idea how to express them. But physically, I mean, yeah, I was a freaking specimen, and it felt amazing to be like this machine on the track, like, just so dialed in, and my body was just like ripping, and I was like 11% body fat. But my emotional life was a mess. My relational life with myself and with others was not very healthy. And sorry, there's a bunch of honking out there. I think they're, I don't know, just doing a Sunday honking festival outside or
No
something.
worries. I'm good with
Um,
that.
yeah. And yeah, physically, though, I think spiritually, I was, my spiritual life was void. It was not tended to. So physical body was tended to, but the emotional and spiritual, and also my feminine, my sensual, not tended to.
Hmm.
And those were the makings of like my inner world then was represented to me on a grander scale in the macrocosm of my outer world.
Hmm.
So long answer, but
How did you approach self care back then?
oh,
Was it a
dude.
big part of your day?
That's such a good question, Ty. I have such a different relationship with self-care now, and have like incredible tools. But back then it was always looking externally. So massage,
Hmm.
treatment, chiropractic, like acupuncture, just getting because I thought I was like, oh, well, that will just make me feel better. So I would just get like any external uh, stimulus to make me come back into a parasympathetic state. Um, then I realize now, like, I have the power to do that to myself all the time and get grounded through my
Hmm.
own body, experience. So, yeah, self care was, you know, zoning out and watching Netflix like binges. Like that was the self care. Walking my dogs, but and then in the last year I really started to get pushed by my coaches to like go snowboarding, get out and do more hiking, like go do things that like create novelty and um, that bring me joy, which was connecting in nature. So um, yeah, I would say my that's one thing I teach the most to women is that like self-care is not like sometimes we got to go, have a Netflix watch, but like I can barely watch TV now because I like know of like how that makes me feel and like I don't want to take in any external stimulus. So I try to teach women, I try to show women that it's like self-care and self-nurturing is actually just getting better at feeling.
Hmm.
When you get better at feeling, not you then feel ultimately better, or you can let those emotions like cycle through you instead of being stuck and stagnated in specific parts of your body.
Hmm. So,
Yeah.
what you remember when I broke my leg?
Yeah.
For those
Oh,
listening, I was in a backcountry snowboarding accident. I think it was 25, so this is a while ago,
mhm.
and almost died on that mountain. It was a good time, but at the time, I was the fittest I've ever been. I wasn't a CrossFit Games athlete, and I was very far away from one. But I was a fit dude, and
Yeah.
my identity was moving my body, and
Mhm.
it had been since I was a college athlete, and that was my identity. That's who I was as a person. And then when you get that taken away from you, when you're basically broken, I struggled for years because my identity was gone.
Oh,
Did you feel the same when you couldn't compete anymore?
absolutely. So, and my taking away or my spiritual 2x4 was definitely getting kicked out of the CrossFit world, being accused of being a cheater, having my relationship just be completely exposed as like the detrimental relationship that it was, and then also having to become personally responsible for like everything I ever did in my life. Um, so yeah, it was, I think I have just recently come through the void because we are in this identity and we build it up, and it's the framework of our ego, and then it gets all burnt down, and then you go through this very listless, like basically it's an unwinding or a deprogramming of what we once were. Like I remember waking up maybe a couple of years ago and being like, oh my god, I don't have a program. like, I don't even know what to do with myself. Like, I'm not following like this regimented, like I knew exactly what I was doing every day. Um, and that was like really, that was super uncomfortable for me for a long time. And then all of a sudden, through clandestine events, I met people that were showing me that I can listen and drop into my body, and my body tells me how to flow. My body tells me how many reps I'm going to do, not like a set number outside of myself, but a set number based on feeling. And then I started to express myself in play instead of just, oh, okay, I gotta go do a bunch of deadlifts, and which still feels good, but instead now it's really based off of flow, and which is much more nourishing to my entire being and my soul, because I am very nomadic and gypsy and hippie-ish at heart. So
What kind of play do you do? I know you're into surfing.
yeah, so surfing's the ultimate flow. It's like a metaphor for life. But I'm really into something that my friend Azima and showed me, and she's like this flow movement like lady, uh, some of it based on like Brazilian jiu-jitsu, some of it based on like GMB theory, and like brought
Mhm.
it together. And it's all about self-inquiry and self-regulation. So it's like, oh, why can't I spread all the fingers of my, or all my toes? Why can't I just like abduct everything? And then you start to be like, oh, well, I can move it like this way. And then you can pull apart all these like different multiverses of movement in your body, and being with discomfort. For example, the biggest thing that I've learned recently was, I'm good at like doing all of my pelvic bowl work, but then connecting that to the larger sense of my body, which is, I had hurt my neck like doing a clean and jerk a while ago. And immediately I went into this like, okay, I got to get a chiropractic adjustment, acupuncture. I was stiff and like walking around like this. And my friend Azima was like, your neck is literally calling for you to be with it. Like,
Hmm.
so close your eyes and then start moving it in ways that give it lotion, give it movement, give it tenderness, breathe into that area of your neck. And when I started to do that, I was like, oh man, I don't have to be afraid of whatever this chronic repetitive injury is. I can like be with it, breathe with it, move it, and create that health and support around that system and whatever that like emotion is that's trapped in there. So I would say that for me, that having that sentient level of sentience with your body, now I express it on a daily basis in alignment with that. So, for example, lately I've been studying a lot and I'm in exams and I'm moving. So my cortisol levels are a little bit higher. And on top of that, I'm in my luteal phase, which is that phase right before menstruation. So my cortisol levels are higher. So it's not a time to go push hard. It's not a time for me to run. It's not a time for me to do CrossFit workout. It's a time for me to move into my body, just listen to music and maybe do some kind of like yoga flow. Maybe it's some kind of weird dance flow. I've got like flow toys, so like little fire spinning stuff. Like that WEC method, rope flow kind of stuff. And it's so much more nourishing and supportive to my body because it knows that, okay, she's chilling out while we support her through this very like mineral depleting stressful time.
Hmm.
And then now my body is like in a way happier state. And so it's so much fun to flow between these worlds once you have that self-knowledge. And self-knowledge and understanding your body, in my opinion, is the greatest undertaking of your life. And then you understand personal responsibility. And then you also meet your body, not only your emotions, not only your sensuality or your sexuality, but also your pain, your physical pain, and understanding even symptoms like eczema, or, like all of a sudden you're getting cramps in your legs. Like that's a message, because your body's this piece of, infinite intelligence and wisdom, and we
Hmm.
just have forgotten the messages and the whispers it tells us. So yeah, I play all day, and play can look like, today my boyfriend and I hacky sacked in by the harbor, and then practiced and did like some handstand stuff and just like goofed around. I
Mhm.
feel completely rejuvenated. And so play is just that free, like, how does my body want to express itself? And once you get the vocabulary of like certain movements to do that, like animal flow, like trying to be a gorilla or something,
Mhm.
um, you realize you're like, oh my God, like playing is such a workout. You get so much out of it mentally, physically, emotionally, and you're connecting with that inner child. So yeah, play is the best. And I think especially as CrossFitters, not only just as adults, but as CrossFitters, we forget that aspect because we love to be in this linear, like lifting world.
Totally. I like
Mhm.
how you changed your goals. Or- Originally, you were like, I need a passive modality. I need a chiro adjustment. I need a massage. And then you found benefit from just moving. And that's definitely where my practice is heading. Have you heard anything about Mackenzie or repeated motions or anything like that?
I've heard of like the Mackenzie method.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's pretty much the same thing that you did. It's your body sending a pain signal to
right,
your, and then you are able to desensitize your nervous system by just moving. And
right.
yeah, you can throw a passive modality on it short term to make you feel better. But at the end of the day, this is going to keep happening unless you learn, what's your body doing? Like you have to learn how to move it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And yeah, and taking responsibility for that. And I remember it's so funny because I remember you were so frustrated with people because you would put up on the whiteboard before class, like three different things they could do from like the supple leopard or your own creations of like opening up the hips, and nobody would do it. They'd just rather stand around and wait for like, okay, we're gonna do this now and that now, because people just we love that programming,
mhm.
but we never actually want to be with our body. And that's why, I coach CrossFit now. And again, I still love the whole modality. I think like it's the best bang for your buck, but I just see a lot of people doing it. And I want to go up to them and be like, are you enjoying yourself? Like, actually, because they're just like on the rower, like, and I'm like, are you doing this because you think this is the only way for you to be healthy and not get fat? Or are you doing this because you truly want to feel your whole body, or you want to get to that state of like that runner's high state, the endorphin rush? um and I think for me, like, yeah, I just think most of us don't want to go and hang out with our body in a way that's slow and intentional, because there's things stored there, emotions, trauma, anger, frustration, whatever, that we may not necessarily want to unpack or discover.
Mhm. Yeah. You mentioned to me last time we talked that you had a nice ayahuasca experience.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell me about that? I'm super curious.
Well, I had been kicked out of CrossFit and completely wrecked. Like, I was wrecked. It was at that point in my life where I was like, wow, I really can be way more compassionate to people who are carrying heavy things like burdens or mental health issues. Like, fuck, I couldn't even eat. And I then just got invited, like the universe just like opened up, and I got invited on this trip to go to Israel, and they said they'd fly me anywhere. And like, then I got invited to go on this trip to Peru. So I hit Australia and India in between, and was just by myself walking and like really trying to process everything that had just happened to me, and how like I had a part to play in this, and like why was this happening and all that. um, and then yeah, I got a chance to, once I got called to Peru, I was like, okay, that's a pretty clear sign that it's time for me to do some deep, deep work. And I went to do this ayahuasca ceremony. It was just me and the shaman and two facilitators, and I was in this Merloca, like in the hills of Cusco. And I had felt right before I took the medicine, I was just like, everything in my life was leading up to this moment. And I drank the medicine and I got my ass kicked. Like, ayahuasca is not a pleasant experience,
Mhm.
especially I was pretty spiritually disconnected from myself. and was very much in a victim mentality for most of my life, which most women are.
Mm.
That's the program we're born into, and it's handed down through our bodies from our mothers and our grandmothers. And yeah, so I had to process everything, like the abortion that I had and just like tried to run away from by working out more, all the relationships I had, and the anger that I carried. And it was terrifying. It was terrifying. But then also, um, entering that void and seeing that once I was like pulled out of my body and finally like stopped resisting and just surrendered, something I had never experienced in my life because I was pretty good at controlling things. Um, Mother Ayahuasca showed me this great ocean of light, and that this is where we come from. We're just all energy, and we get like put into these really cool bodies that we get to take care of, like basically vessels. And I just saw this great energy and finally understood that we are these divine, godlike creatures. And I saw then the medicine show me that if I can come down into my body and love my body, so intensely, more than anybody ever could, and love myself and my being and everything that I'm about, even the dark parts of me, every door in my life would begin to open up. And ayahuasca wasn't a cure-all. As soon as I finished that experience, I went into a pretty like deep depression because like your ego house has been shaken up. And then began my integration work. And so I actually started working with this like Jewish mystic lady, who began to teach me about like the Kabbalah and really actually processing my emotions and learning about like healthier ways to meet myself. She changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, so it's been a ton of work. It's like, I feel like ayahuasca was the thing that cracked me open so I could see all the freaking demons and then start working on them and cleaning up my house
Mm-hmm.
and getting curious about those things. And that shifted me out of this victim mindset and being abhorring my reactions or like my bodily sensations to any stimulus, which is just all biofeedback. So now I get curious about any like reaction I have, and all of a sudden that's so empowering because you're like, this is weird. I'm experiencing feelings of anger. Okay, how, like, what's below that? There's the self inquiry. How can I move with my body? And maybe I need to like toss some fucking rocks and rage right now because I have righteous rage, or other things of that nature. Maybe I need to really weep and like be with my body. And so it's like I said in the beginning, you're just getting better at feeling instead of just trying to feel better. You get better at feeling because we are
Mm-hmm.
here to have an entire range of human experiences, much like the spiritual like clusterfuck that is now. We're in a great big spiritual washing machine, and it's your choice to choose freedom and to choose love again and again and again for yourself, for your soul. But that requires a ton of work, and it's not easy, and the path doesn't change. You actually get the same feedback, or like the same stimulus, the same issues come up, but you just get better at being like, oh yeah, uh-huh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and then stepping through that and upward spiraling.
Yeah, that's the one misconception that I've heard a lot when people are talking about psychedelics and what their expectations are. They're saying this is going to be the fix to whatever problem I have, but it's going to be completely useless. The drug or the medicine, I like that term better, is just making therapy easier to do. It opens up the door for therapy. But if you don't do the work afterwards, then it's just an experience.
Totally. And I would even go to argue, like, I only did one sitting, and then I just got to work on my cleaning up my house, cleaning up my soul and
Mm-hmm.
tending to it. And, I will perhaps do one more sit, but I know lots of people who've never done psychedelics, and they're some of the most grounded, like pure people I've ever met.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that everybody, this is a totally non-prescriptive world, and I think we try to make it prescriptive. It's not. With everything, it's so much your experience and you getting comfortable with all of your experiences. I think what I like about psychedelics is that it really blows the cap off of programming and conditioning, and like every story that we've ever been handed, getting curious with it again, like, why? That's not mine. Who gave me that? Who said
Mhm.
that? So you're tending to your garden.
So, what are you passionate about these days? I know you're building a TCM practice, you're doing women's health, you're doing CrossFit. What are your main passions clinically?
So my main passion is helping women reconnect to their sexuality. And through my work, through my own excavation of my soul, I really came down to some ancient esoteric practices like Taoism and Tibetan Buddhism and Egyptian Isis sex magic. And I really began to understand that the root of all life is sexuality. And I actually just recently wrote a quantum physics paper linking sexuality or proving that the field of fields is actually sexual energy. And we're just using different language to describe the same thing. So I believe that when people have blocks to their sexuality, they then get ill. They have then self-sabotaging tendencies. They will repeat the same patterns because your all energy is sexual energy. And so if there's blocks in your body, blocks in your channel for that root chakra to then rise up and like go through your vessel and whatever you want to call it, we have these two primordial forces within us, masculine and feminine, left brain, right brain. And when, in my opinion, women have a very heavy burden to carry about sexuality, and so do men, actually. We've been put into this system to believe that sex is kind of like this, it really does carry a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of dissociation, and then of course getting into like sexual politics that doesn't serve us, and we've forgotten the sacredness of it. So my biggest passion right now is bringing women back in to inhabit their pelvic bowl and living a life from their root, and being associated and living and embodying that root place, because that is the direction. That's your compass. It tells you exactly where to go, what to do. And not only that, discovering deeper levels of pleasure that when I was a CrossFit athlete, I did not experience. I was essentially anorgasmic. And my performance in the world, like I was a high performer in CrossFit, became a performance too in relationships and in my sexuality. And I never was truly opening to the experience because I wasn't comfortable with my body. I wasn't comfortable with my vagina and my pussy.
Mm.
I'm just going to say pussy from now on.
You're allowed to say pussy on here.
Okay, awesome.
Absolutely.
um, from my pussy, I wasn't comfortable with her. I didn't love her. I didn't commune with her on a daily level. And because if I really look at it, Ty, my whole experience was that I never had an awesome display of femininity. I didn't have like a feminine hero. I like really just liked and abhorred the quote unquote like weakness around it, the whine, like my perceived like whininess, or the sacrifice you had to do all the time in order to be like a good woman. And so, then I tried to put up all this armor basically and become like really strong metaphorically, so that I wouldn't have to ever like go down that path. But then I realized that that was my own internalized story about what femininity is and what being a woman is about. And I can, through tapping into the power of my sexuality and clearing out those stories, I now can rewrite every narrative that works for me.
Hmm.
And again, like, you are this sexual, holy sexual, divine, godlike being, and we can use the power of sex to manifest and create a life that we desire. And we've just basically lost that because shame and guilt are very powerful control tools. So that's what I'm interested in right now.
Mhm.
And so I'm interested in everything from, yes, holistic sexuality to the inner matrix of fascia in the pelvic bowl and how to massage and release that. I think that every woman, but particularly athletic women, should be doing self-vaginal massage releasing because that there's hypertonic tissue in there and it's never touched unless it's by a lover or a doctor. And
Mhm.
it's like, you know, we need to start owning this space in a really big way. That's where all the healing is. And that's where, you know, once you start to balance, Lao Tse, the venerable one of the Tao Te Ching, said, once masculine and feminine is balanced, the Tao flows through you. And it's absolutely true. Once you start to understand masculine and feminine, or you could even say discipline and surrender, right? You have flow. It's like that little like beautiful Venn diagram. Like it, then all of a sudden you can surf both worlds, and it's amazing because you're now tuning into the oppositions of these forces so that you can then come into alignment, and you don't have to work as hard, you don't have to stress as much, you don't have to grind. You can just let things come to you because we are magnetic individuals, we are godlike individuals. They're still then having the discipline to work within or play within that structure.
Mhm.
Uh, so my hope is through, you know, women's health issues are so rampant. I read a stat from this woman who's incredible. Her name's Sarah Gustafferson. She has done a ton of research on women's health, but out of autoimmune disorders, women take up 80% of those diagnoses. There's not one woman I have met who has a healthy relationship with her sexuality, very few, or has a blissful menstruation, or is actually having a real menstruation, which is not being on hormonal birth control, or having deep, like soul affirming, life shaking orgasms, which is beyond just the clitoral, like dopamine rush of, you know, a little rub out, but like actually deeply self pleasuring and having internal vaginal orgasms and cervical orgasms or breast orgasms. So I'm really obsessed in like the esoteric, like art side of it, then also the science behind it. And there's incredible science coming out about what brain centers light up with different styles of pleasure and touch. And every woman has the ability to tap into this. It's just a matter of getting the education that we never got.
Mhm. What would
So
you say? What would you say to other practitioners? Because I think we're all in this big referral network. There's definitely enough people in pain that we can just share. We can share patients. We don't
yeah,
have to. There's this famine mentality where physios are the worst, or physical therapists in the States, or chiros are the worst. And I like to preach that we're all on the same team. So, what would you want other practitioners to know about your lane of treatment? And, like, when would they send, what signs would they see in their own people? Let's say you're doing a treatment plan that doesn't work. When would you want people to come towards you?
Hmm. Um, well, I would say that healing, again, is non-prescriptive. And all we're doing as chiros or acupuncturists or shamans or um, physiotherapists or doctors is that we're giving tools to these people so that more tools for their tool healing box, right? So, and I really do believe that at different iterations of my life, certain medicine was needed and help me get then to that next level. And then you do that for a little bit, and then you're like, okay, I need to maybe excavate deeper, or maybe I'm going to chill for a bit before I get back into my like self healing. Um, it's all always a different level. And I'm not going to sit here and say acupuncture is the be all end all. It's not. It's like, if you're a healer, you better be doing like a ton of different outside influences to uh, I guess, enrich your work. And that's how you create a great referral network. Like, oh man, this is out of my scope. I'm going to send it here. Or like, oh, I feel a vertebrae out, which, as you know, chiropractic medicine was actually, you know, bone setting was created in China. And I can't believe that you guys don't learn that at chiro school. But like a lot of acupuncturists actually do bone setting and they operate within like this gray area, because like, what's an adjustment? That like that little pop, right? Like, how would you describe an adjustment? But anyways, like if you see a vertebrae out, maybe it's like, oh man, this person structurally needs to go see Ty. And then I would say though, for most women who are having like pelvic floor issues, have urinary incontinence, terrible periods, horrible moods, depressed libidos, are in a victim mentality, they need to come my way. And I've actually been trained in holistic pelvic care by Tammy Lynn Kent, who was a physio therapist or physical therapist for pelvic floors, and began to realize like, oh, like every symptom has like almost a cut and dry like thing that has happened in that woman's life to lead to fibroids or polycystic ovarian syndrome or brutal nauseating menstruation, or vagina tissue that tears all the time, or the list goes on, cystitis. So I want to be I'm operating in the places where most people are probably uncomfortable to be. And I also think it takes like a special kind of person who's willing to have those uncomfortable conversations about like sexuality, and about, women's mental health, because we really like to glaze over that area a lot. Even men's sexual health. I know a couple acupuncturists here who are trying to get into that world of like, hey, we need to start addressing like literally our root. So I would say that if you're uncomfortable with a female patient, send her my way.
What are your thoughts on what adjusting does? Like, are you putting bones back in place? Are you addressing motion fixations? There's a couple different camps.
You're addressing the nervous system, no?
Yeah. There's just different camps. Everyone's got different ideas of what you're actually doing. So
right.
that's definitely a debate.
Depending on your training.
Yeah. Well, and there's like in chiropractic, there's tons of different camps. Like Gonstead practitioners are very, very like the original chiropractic, which is we're adjusting subluxations, which are bones out of place. I might be bastardizing their beliefs. And then the new age people that are more addressing motion fixations, and we're just trying to restore motion to a joint. But whatever you call it, we're all having the same clinical goals, so it doesn't really matter what you call it.
Totally. And I would say like I'm learning in Chinese medicine and acupuncture that there's a million different ways to treat one patient. And so then what are we really doing? Well, I would say, again, we're addressing nervous system, and we're then moving blood to an area so that it can then have cellular turnover and more oxygen, and, healing takes place. And then beyond that, there's like that practitioner patient relationship and like the healing that takes place between that. And that's something I'm just tapping into, and maybe feeling more of like the subtle energy behind that. Because in the West, we don't want to believe in subtle energies, even though quantum physics is showing us that there's far more beyond the Newtonian world in which we love to operate in. So yeah, I mean, again, healing is non-prescriptive. And I think that the more authentic you can be as a practitioner and really clear on your voice, which is getting clear on your sexual root, then the more you will attract exactly the type of patient that needs to see you. And anybody who's in like a scarcity mindset, well, that's a painful place to be in. So yeah.
How has your opinion on CrossFit changed over the years? I know mine has. How I coach people is very different. Especially being in pain. Like when I was like a broken piece of shit, and then trying to train as that human, I was like, oh man, like some people just showing up is good enough, like how has your opinion on how you coach people changed?
Man, I think one of my biggest ego challenges, and something I'm trying to create equanimity in, is like my inner critic and judge is pretty harsh. Like I have high standards for myself. So then I therefore put that onto other people a lot. So understanding that compassion for people that maybe just want to show up and just move how they move, and don't want to do that work of like the triggers and like why they're in chronic pain or those things. Like having that compassion and knowing where somebody's at is a very big challenge and probably something I'll be learning the rest of my life. But CrossFit has changed for me because my opinion on it has radically changed. Like I'm actually, it's so funny. Even when I was in the sport, I wasn't really like into watching it or like spectating or like nerding out on it. I was literally like, I'm just good at this, so I'm just gonna rip it hard. And then I've realized, well, that was actually not a soul alignment choice, because I could be good at so many different things, but I need to align with like the fuck yeses in my life, not just like, yeah, I'll do it. So CrossFit for me right now just really doesn't align with what my body needs. Like I've done a trillion squats. I've done all the workouts. Like all I want to do now is to have like what I think CrossFit was originally, which is just athletic preparedness, right? Like I want to be able to run super fast if there's like a predator trying to get me. I want to be able to, if someone has me on the ground, like be able to like jujitsu my way out of that. If there's certain things that having an athletic and prepared body affords you incredible experiences in this life. Like I was in Colorado and a friend was like, do you want to do a 30K like mountain bike thing? And I was like, yeah, like let's go. And had like, it was so hard. And I was like, why am I doing this? But it's like, it affords you that level of like, holy shit, I'm doing this. So I would say that I strength train probably twice a week, and I just do pretty like random things that like my body calls for. And I don't, in terms of my healing too, metabolically, I destroyed myself for a long time, and my heart rate is much too low. My general body temperature is much too low. So I'm still trying to heal from that period of my life and get my metabolism up and running and high and pumping, because I'm showing a lot of signs, and a lot of women do, because we don't nourish ourselves enough and we work out way too much and we stress way too much. So it's like, it's not in my best service to get my heart rate up right now. It's like, I do a little bit of like sandbag lifting and then just play the rest of the time and go with that flow.
Mm-hmm. You
So,
mentioned, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
sorry. Yeah. I just think CrossFit in the original days, that was badass. You know, that was super badass. And now it's just turned into like this dog and pony show, and it's cool. Those athletes are amazing, but also some of the most unathletic people I've ever met, and but also some of the most athletic, right? It was a huge range. So I don't know, it's not really my shtick anymore, I would say. I've kind of transcended beyond it, perhaps, and not in a cocky way, just like it doesn't serve my soul in the way that it once did.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned a little bit about the dangers, or let's say the side effects of birth control.
Mm-hmm. Hormonal birth control.
Hormonal birth control. What advice would you give if a female is looking to get off of birth control?
So there's incredible resources out there. Most women don't have and I didn't either, a clear understanding of how our cycle actually works. You can only get pregnant out of like 1 week around your ovulation. So 3 days before, 2 days after, roughly. It changes for every individual. But hormonal birth control has extensive systematic issues with it. And I think we'll look back in 100 years and be like, holy crap, why are we suppressing fertility in half of the population just to avoid pregnancy? What we're suppressing with hormonal birth control is your like life force, your health. And what we're seeing now, why women have an 80%, what's it called? An 80% autoimmune disorder diagnosis rate, is because we've totally ravaged progesterone, which is our the pro-life hormone, right? So we need that to balance out our estrogen. And hormonal birth control is actually giving you more synthetic hormone than your body would actually make naturally of the natural hormone. And so I would tell women who are having gut issues, have cold hands and feet, low libido, weight gain, the hair loss, the list goes on. Depression, it actually changes your lateral orbital frontal lobe. And they did a huge study of like 1 million women in Copenhagen on getting diagnosed with depression after getting on hormonal birth control. I would say that get off hormonal birth control, listen or start picking up resources like the Fifth Vital Sign, period repair manual, and then start tracking your cycle. And you do that through the cervicothermal sympto method. And it's your cervix is shifting positions throughout the entire month. And it actually feels different when you are fertile compared to your infertile times. And there's a mucosal plug that plugs that cervix so that sperm can't get up into your uterus. And so then you track your cervical mucus, which changes throughout the month. So when it's like really clear and thin, you know that you're in speed strip sperm, like pregnancy land. When it's really thick, then you know it's not. You're good. And then, but the most, I think, important piece of data is your bodily temperature, which most women should be taking anyway if they want to understand thyroid health and proper metabolism. And I actually have this device called the Daisy, which you like put under your tongue every morning. And that's my birth control. And it tracks exactly like my cycle. And I do those, of course, those other two things just because I'm in my pussy every day anyway, like checking her out and, you know, connecting with her. So it's a really great way to get in touch with your body and get in touch with your pelvic bowl. And then once you get off birth control, hormonal birth control, you're going to have an actual bleed instead of a breakthrough bleed. And you're going to have to deal with then your cycle takes 13 years to mature fully. And so a lot of women experience like, oh man, I should have never got off hormonal birth control because I'm actually feeling the things I'm supposed to be feeling. I'm like, yes, that's exactly right. Like you want to live a life that's full of feeling, full of like being with those emotions. And it's just learning how to be with those emotions. And so that's what I teach in the art of being an athletic woman, everything from how to track your cycle to how to nourish specifically on your cycle, your ever changing biochemistry. So for example, in the week of your luteal phase, you need, your metabolism is way higher. So you need more food. And then also stabilizing your blood sugar to honoring your ancestors through your pussy and through your flow. And just returning back to that, like being a woman is so holy, but we get every story in the book that says it's not, that it's just this kind of shitty, painful experience. Even to birth can be orgasmic. And it's like for those who are willing to go there and to be with their pussy and to be with their sexuality and to rehydrate that tissue, just like you would, you know, get a massage on your traps. You do the same thing internally. All of a sudden, being a woman is like the best thing ever. You start stepping into queen phase instead of this like victim, like, oh, it sucks to be a woman. I hate my flow. It's like, no, I get to rest. And like this cycle, this true natural cycle I have is literally a blueprint for your life. So like when I'm ovulating, this is the time to have the hard conversations, to ask for that raise, to have all the adventures set up in your life. Whereas during your luteal phase, which is right before your menstruation, the what's it called? What's the thing that connects to hemispheres? Your corpus callosum is lit up and it's connecting both hemispheres of your brain. So that means you're so much more sensitive. You're an open portal to everything bubbling up that needs to change in your life. And it's like the things that you're supposed to be feeling to be like, man, I need to course correct that. Or I need to have this conversation next time with my partner when I'm ovulating, because I don't like, this isn't working for me. or I try not to plan like any huge events around my menstruation. It's a time to rest, and that's okay.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's just showing that like being a woman is so fucking awesome. It's just really hard in this masculated world. And there's nothing wrong. Well, there's some things wrong with the masculated world, but we also have to remember like everything here was also built under the dimensions for a man, you know? And again, I love men, I love the masculine, and I believe in the embodied masculine. I think toxic masculinity is a bunch of bullshit. We need strong men, but that means we need strong ass women too, to like come in and get really clear on who they are, and become the queens that we are all inside. And so for me, that is this like number one step you can do is get off hormonal birth control right away. And then you get your body back, you get your life back, and you can have incredible sex. And you don't need to, yeah, use this something that suppresses your fertility and suppresses your health.
Mhm.
So, and then also once you start doing that, you're like, man, my sexuality is really sacred. I'm not just gonna like, go bang any guy and like potentially mess up my pH of my vagina. So it's like, oh, I'm going to be like really sacred and clear about who I let into my world. And not only that, you're up leveling the vibration of your own body so that you're attracting in people that respect and love the feminine. And also you are then respect and love the masculine, because we're not meant to be like divisive and like butting heads. We are meant to be like flowing between these two primordial energies.
You ready for some rapid fire questions?
Yes.
Long or short answer, it doesn't matter. All right, would you rather powder snowboard or have an amazing surf?
Oh, amazing surf.
Amazing surf. Favorite cheat meal?
Um, uh, Pizza.
Favorite place you've traveled and why?
Israel, because it's a melting pot of every culture and it's ancient.
How much do you still identify with this phrase? This meal isn't over till I hate myself.
Oh gosh, I'm Louis C.K. Um, I don't at all. I don't eat till I hate myself. I eat to nourish and love myself.
What is your the athletic achievement that you are most proud of to date?
Honestly, um, winning that 2017 West Regionals, because that was fucking all me.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on today. Let's
Man, thank you. I
yeah,
feel like I was just like blah for like an hour.
no, you crushed it, man. Let's can you shout out what you're doing right now professionally? If people want to look you up, how are they going to do that?
So I have a website and it's Emily-Abbott, ABBOTT.com. And that's where all of my offerings are. I'm currently halfway through acupuncture school. I will be licensed soon. And you can also find me at Emily.Abbott on Instagram. And that's where I have a lot of my offerings, like the art of being an athletic woman. I will be teaching a webinar in the fall on how to do your own self vaginal release and rehydrate that tissue, and as well as weightlifting for the vagina and having a nice strong vagina. So yeah, check me out there. And yeah, I like to have a lot of fun with that. So
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emily.
man, Tyner, thank you so much. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
it was great. See ya.
it. Bye.